My weathered hands gripped the steering wheel as I surveyed the sprawling mansion rising before me like something from a magazine. After 4 grueling hours driving from my modest apartment in Albany, I finally reached this address in Westchester County. Manicured lawns stretched endlessly, dotted with luxury cars gleaming in the circular driveway. This was my son, Marcus' new home, though we hadn't spoken in 8 months. I clutched a manila envelope containing documents that could change everything between us. Walking up those marble steps, I rang the doorbell with a genuine smile, expecting reconciliation after all this time apart. Instead, Marcus opened the door, looked me up and down with unmistakable disgust, and delivered the crushing blow that would ignite my quiet fury. The pain of that moment transported me back through 25 years of sacrifice and love that had somehow led to this cold rejection. I raised Marcus alone after my beloved wife Sarah died when he was just 12 years old. Cancer took her slowly, and I watched my boy struggle with grief while trying to become the man she would have wanted him to be. Those were the hardest years of my life. Working double shifts at Thompson Construction, I sacrificed sleep, comfort, and my own dreams to ensure Marcus had everything he needed. While other kids played video games after school, Marcus sat at our kitchen table doing homework under the yellow light of that old lamp Sarah had loved. I checked his assignments every night, even when exhaustion made my eyes blur from 16-hour workdays. The construction business was just one part of my life, though Marcus never knew the whole truth about what his father really did for work. What mattered was making sure my son had opportunities I never had. Every dollar I earned went toward his education, his clothes, his future. I sold Sarah's engagement ring to pay for SAT prep courses. I took out a second mortgage to cover his Columbia Law School tuition. When Marcus graduated summa cum laude, I felt Sarah's presence in that auditorium, knowing she would have been so proud. Marcus landed a prestigious position at Blackstone, Meyer & Associates, one of Manhattan's most respected law firms. The starting salary was more than I made in 2 years of construction work. Soon after, he met Courtney Wellington, daughter of Connecticut Senator Richard Wellington. Their engagement announcement appeared in the New York Times social pages. The estrangement began so gradually I barely noticed at first. Marcus started making excuses to avoid our monthly dinners, claiming crushing work demands. Phone calls became shorter and less frequent. When I asked about visiting his new apartment, he said it wasn't ready for guests yet. Then came his wedding invitation. The envelope arrived, addressed simply to William Thompson, with no mention of father of the groom. During the reception at the exclusive Riverside Country Club, I watched from the back tables as Marcus mingled with senators, judges, and corporate executives. When colleagues approached him for introductions, he presented me as an old family friend who knew my parents. Old family friend. Those words cut deeper than any physical blow. The breaking point came 6 months ago, through the most unexpected source. Mrs. Henderson, my elderly neighbor, knocked on my door with a concerned expression and a newspaper clipping in her trembling hands. She had attended a charity fundraiser at the Westchester Cultural Center where Marcus gave a moving speech about his journey as an orphan who overcame adversity through determination and hard work. The speech was printed in full in the local society pages. Marcus described losing both parents in a tragic construction accident during his teenage years, growing up with distant relatives, working multiple jobs to put himself through college and law school. He spoke eloquently about honoring his deceased parents' memory by dedicating his success to helping other disadvantaged youth. Mrs. Henderson stared at me with confusion and pity. "William, I don't understand. Aren't you Marcus' father? Why is he telling people you're dead?" I took that newspaper clipping and read it 5 times before the full impact hit me. My son hadn't just distanced himself from his working-class background. He had erased me completely from his life story, creating an inspiring narrative where his father's death justified his ambition while eliminating any embarrassment about my blue-collar existence. I tried calling Marcus that same evening, but the number had been disconnected. New phone records showed he had changed it weeks earlier without notifying me. Letters I sent to his law firm were returned unopened. Emails bounced back as undeliverable. My son had built walls so high around his new life that his own father couldn't reach him. For months, I wrestled with hurt and confusion. How does a father respond when his child pretends he doesn't exist? I considered showing up at his office, confronting him publicly, or contacting Courtney directly. But something inside me hesitated. Maybe Marcus needed time to work through whatever shame or fear drove him to such extreme measures. Today's visit was meant to be my final attempt at reconciliation. The manila envelope contained legal documents that would give Marcus everything he thought he wanted: complete financial independence and freedom from any connection to his father's modest circumstances. I had planned to present these papers as a birthday gift, a gesture of unconditional love that would allow him to build his future without any obligation to acknowledge me. Instead, I found myself standing on his marble porch, while Marcus blocked the doorway like a security guard protecting against unwanted intruders. Marcus stood in that doorway wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Every detail of his appearance spoke of careful cultivation: perfectly styled hair, manicured nails, Italian leather shoes polished to mirror brightness. Behind him, I glimpsed crystal chandeliers casting rainbow patterns across marble floors, oil paintings in golden frames, and a curved staircase that belonged in a museum. The sound of cultured laughter and clinking glasses drifted from deeper inside the house. Marcus glanced nervously over his shoulder, then stepped onto the porch and pulled the door almost shut behind him. "What are you doing here?" His voice carried the crisp accent he had developed somewhere between law school and his current life. The King-class Albany inflection of his childhood had been completely erased. "I told you we were finished discussing anything months ago. Son, I just wanted to talk. Important documents about the family business, and don't call me that." Marcus cut me off with the sharpness of a blade. "And there is no family business. You own a small construction company that barely pays your bills. There's nothing there that could possibly interest me or my life." Through the gap in the door, I saw a woman in an elegant black dress approaching. Courtney Wellington moved with the fluid grace of someone raised in finishing schools and country clubs. Her blonde hair was swept into an intricate updo adorned with diamond pins, and her makeup was applied with professional precision. She whispered something urgent into Marcus' ear while eyeing me with barely concealed alarm. "The Hamiltons are asking about the man at the door," she murmured, loud enough for me to hear. "Senior partner Rogers wants to make the announcement about your promotion during dessert. You can't keep everyone waiting." Marcus' jaw tightened as he processed this information. "Courtney, this is William Thompson. Hez leaving now. Not my father. Not even someone I used to know. Just my name, delivered like he was identifying a door-to-door salesman." Courtney extended her hand with the practiced charm of political families. "Mr. Thompson, how nice to meet you. I'm afraid we're hosting a rather important dinner party this evening. Perhaps you could call Marcus' office to schedule an appointment." The dismissal was polite but absolute. I was being treated like a business contact, not family. "Marcus, I drove 4 hours to see you. I'm not asking to come inside or meet your guests. Just give me 5 minutes to look at yourself." Marcus interrupted, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. He gestured at my pressed but inexpensive shirt, my worn work boots, my calloused hands that bore the evidence of decades of manual labor. "Look at where you are. This house, these people, this entire world requires a certain level of sophistication, a certain background. These are senior partners from the most prestigious law firm in Manhattan. Senator Wellington is in my dining room right now. The governor's chief of staff is having dessert with my wife." His words struck like physical blows. "I've worked for 6 years to build my reputation in circles where bloodlines matter, where connections span generations, where a single misstep can destroy everything. Tonight could make me the youngest partner in Blackstone. Myers' 140-year history. Courtney nodded approvingly at this speech, her diamond bracelet catching the porch light as she adjusted her hair. Darling, the Wellington Foundation is considering a major donation to the firm's pro bono program. Daddy specifically mentioned how impressed he is with your commitment to helping disadvantaged youth overcome difficult beginnings. The irony hit me like a sledgehammer. Marcus was being praised for helping disadvantaged youth while rejecting his own father as a social liability. You see. Marcus turned back to me with cold satisfaction. I've told everyone my parents died tragically when I was young. It's a story that generates sympathy and respect. It explains my drive to succeed while removing any complications about my actual background. These people would never understand someone like you. Someone like me. The pain in my voice was unmistakable. Marcus, I'm your father. I raised you. I sacrificed everything so you could have opportunities like this, and am grateful for that, he replied with mechanical politeness. But gratitude doesn't change reality. You're a construction worker from Albany. Your idea of fine dining is the Olive Garden. You think a nice suit comes from J.C.Penney. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in conversation with the people inside this house. Courtney glanced at her diamond-encrusted watch with growing impatience. Marcus, the Carmichaels are leaving early for the opera. If you're going to network with Justice Carmichael about that Supreme Court clerkship recommendation, it has to be now. The mention of a Supreme Court clerkship made Marcus' eyes light up with ambition. This dinner party wasn't just social entertainment. It was a carefully orchestrated career advancement opportunity, and my presence threatened to derail everything he had planned. I need you to leave, Marcus said finally, his tone now completely businesslike. This isn't your place. It never will be. I've built a life that requires certain standards, certain connections, certain stories about my background that don't include you. The cruelest blow came when he added, if you really care about my success, you'll respect that choice and disappear from my life permanently. Courtney smiled approvingly and touched Marcus' arm with possessive satisfaction. Through the window, I could see distinguished guests in formal attire, crystal wine glasses raised in toasts, and the warm glow of chandeliers, illuminating a world where I would forever be an unwelcome intruder. Marcus stepped back inside and began closing the door. Don't contact me again, William. Don't come to my office. Don't try to reach Courtney. The door shut with a soft but definitive click, leaving me standing alone on that marble porch, while the sound of refined laughter echoed from inside. Through the windows, I watched my son rejoin his guests, adjusting his tie and smiling as though nothing had happened. I walked slowly back to my battered pickup truck, parked incongruously among the BMWs and Mercedes in that circular driveway. As I fumbled for my keys, I saw Courtney watching me through the dining room window. Her expression a mixture of relief and satisfaction that the threat to her perfect evening had been successfully eliminated. The 4-hour drive back to Albany became a journey through memory and mounting determination. My pickup truck felt like a refuge after the hostile elegance of Marcus Mansion. The radio played classic country music while I navigated dark highways, my hands still trembling from the encounter. As I passed small towns where blue-collar families like my own struggled to make ends meet, I thought about the sacrifices I had made for Marcus' education and success, selling Sarah's wedding ring to pay for LSAT prep courses, working overtime every weekend for 3 years to cover law school tuition, taking out second mortgages that I was still paying off at 67 years old. I remembered teaching young Marcus to throw a baseball in our tiny backyard, his small hands struggling to grip the worn leather properly. I showed him how to swing a hammer when he was 8, how to change a tire when he was 16, how to balance a checkbook when he left for college. I had been both father and mother after cancer took Sarah, trying to fill every gap her absence created. But Marcus never knew the full truth about his father's capabilities. Before construction work became my cover story, I spent 20 years in military intelligence, building networks of contacts in government, business, and law enforcement that most people couldn't imagine. My simple construction job was actually camouflage for consulting work with defense contractors and federal agencies who valued my expertise and discretion. The modest apartment I called home hid sophisticated computer equipment, encrypted communication devices, and filing cabinets full of classified contacts spanning 4 decades of service. My blue-collar appearance was deliberate misdirection, designed to help me blend into backgrounds where valuable information flowed freely among people who never suspected they were talking to a former Army colonel with top-secret clearance. Most importantly, Marcus had no idea that his father had been his silent guardian angel throughout his entire career. Using intelligence connections and financial resources accumulated from government contracts, I had been secretly smoothing his path to success in ways my son never suspected. The law firm where Marcus worked so proudly, I anonymously purchased the building through a shell company 2 years ago, subsidizing the rent to make it profitable enough for rapid expansion and prestigious new hires. Marcus' biggest client, Hartman Defense Systems, worth millions in annual billings. My former commanding officer, Colonel James Hartman, whom I specifically recommended Marcus to, though my son believed he earned that client through pure legal talent. Marcus' luxury lifestyle was built on foundations he didn't recognize. His mortgage was backed by my financial guarantees, processed through investment funds that bore no connection to William Thompson of Albany. Courtney's family trust, which Marcus boasted about to colleagues, included anonymous contributions from my portfolio companies. Even the charity work that earned Marcus social recognition was seeded with my donations, carefully laundered through foundations that made the Wellingtons look more philanthropic than they actually were. I had planned tonight's visit as the culmination of 6 years of secret support. The manila envelope on my passenger seat contained transfer papers that would make Marcus the legitimate owner of everything I had built for him, worth over $2 million. My gift would have given him genuine independence, freeing him from any need to maintain contact with his embarrassing father. Instead, those same papers would now become instruments of justice. Military intelligence training teaches you to document everything, anticipate every scenario, and prepare for betrayal, even from those you love most. For 6 years, I had been recording conversations, tracking financial transactions, and maintaining evidence of every favor I called in to advance Marcus' career. What I intended as protection for my son could easily become the foundation for his destruction. I pulled into my apartment complex at 2 a.m, exhausted but clear about what needed to happen next. Marcus wanted to pretend his father was dead. I would show him exactly what that meant. The manila envelope sat on my passenger seat like a loaded weapon, waiting for dawn and the phone call that would change everything between us forever. Sleep was impossible after the humiliation at Marcus' mansion. I sat at my kitchen table under the harsh, fluorescent light, spreading documents across the worn Formica surface like a general planning a military campaign. These papers revealed the stunning truth about my son's charmed life. Every success, every opportunity, every stroke of luck had been carefully orchestrated by the father he rejected. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements showed anonymous wire transfers from my investment accounts to Marcus' law firm, subsidizing their overhead and making expansion possible. Legal documents revealed my ownership of the Manhattan office building, where Blackstone, Meyer, and Associates operated, purchased through Apex Holdings, a shell company that existed solely to support my son's career. Marcus' biggest client, Hartman Defense Systems, generated 40% of his total billings. The relationship began with a single phone call I made to Colonel James Hartman, my former commanding officer, recommending a brilliant young lawyer who specialized in defense contracts. Marcus never knew that his networking success at a legal conference was actually his father pulling strings with old military contacts. The charity work that made Marcus so attractive to Courtney's social circle was financed by anonymous donations from my portfolio. The Wellington Foundation's interest in hiring Marcus for pro bono work stemmed from my contributions to their pet causes, contributions that made Senator Wellington look more generous to voters while creating opportunities for my son. Even Marcus' mortgage was backed by my financial guarantees. The luxury house in Westchester County would have been impossible on his law firm's salary alone, but banks approved the loan based on assets they never traced back to William Thompson of Albany. I opened my laptop and accessed encrypted files that would terrify Marcus if he knew they existed. Military intelligence habits die hard, especially when protecting someone you love. For 6 years, I had been recording phone conversations, documenting financial transactions, and maintaining detailed records of every favor I called in to advance my son's career. The files contained audio recordings of Senator Wellington discussing illegal campaign contributions, email exchanges between Hartman Defense and congressional staff members about classified contracts, banking records showing how charity money was redirected for political purposes, text messages between Courtney and her friends about tax evasion schemes involving offshore accounts. I had gathered this information as insurance, protection against the day when Marcus' association with powerful but corrupt people might threaten his career. What I intended as a shield could easily become a sword. The manila envelope contained the original transfer papers that would have made Marcus the legitimate owner of everything I built for him, $2 million in assets, all traced back to my military pension and consulting contracts. Legal ownership that would have freed him from any dependence on his father while ensuring his financial security for life. Now those same papers represented a different kind of power. If I withdrew my support, Marcus' world would collapse like a house of cards. The law firm would struggle without my subsidies. Hartman Defense would find new representation. The charity connections would disappear. The mortgage guarantees would be called in. But I wasn't planning simple revenge. Military strategy teaches you to achieve objectives with minimal collateral damage. Marcus needed to learn the cost of burning bridges with people who love him. But destroying his life permanently would serve no purpose except satisfying my wounded pride. I found the business card of Detective Ray Morrison, an old intelligence colleague now working corporate fraud for the FBI. Ray specialized in financial crimes involving defense contractors and political corruption. We had served together in Afghanistan, where trust meant the difference between life and death. I placed Ray's card next to my phone and began composing a detailed message outlining Marcus' unwitting involvement in activities that were about to attract federal attention. My son had been walking a tightrope over a federal prison sentence without knowing it, protected only by his father's intelligence connections and willingness to serve as an informant. Tomorrow morning, I would make one phone call that would show Marcus exactly how fragile his perfect life really was. He wanted to pretend his father was dead. I would let him experience what that actually meant, at least temporarily. The clock on my microwave read 4:37 a.m. as I sealed the transfer papers back in their manila envelope. In a few hours, Marcus would discover that cutting ties with family can have consequences beyond wounded feelings. Sometimes the people who love you most are also the most dangerous enemies you could possibly make. At exactly 5:47 a.m., I dialed a number I had memorized 30 years ago during my first assignment in military intelligence. FBI Special Agent Patricia Wells answered on the first ring, her voice alert despite the early hour. Protocol 7 activation, I said without preamble. Authorization, Tango 77 Alpha. Patricia's tone shifted immediately to professional crispness. Bill, it's been 18 months since our last contact. Are you requesting immediate action on the Hartman investigation, Agent? Wells had been my partner during our final intelligence assignment, tracking defense contractor corruption that reached into the highest levels of government. We maintained contact through the years as I fed her information about suspicious activities within my network of military and corporate contacts. I need to withdraw protection for Asset Charlie, I continued, using the code designation we had assigned to Marcus years ago. Full exposure authorized. Timeline immediate. There was silence on the line as Patricia accessed encrypted files on her secure computer. Bill, Charlie is your son. If we activate the Hartman investigation without your protection, he becomes the primary target. We're talking 15 to 20 years federal prison time. Are you certain about this? I stared out my kitchen window at the sunrise, painting Albany's skyline in shades of gold and orange. Agent Wells, Asset Charlie, has severed all family ties and requested no further contact. He no longer qualifies for protected status under our arrangement. The arrangement Patricia referenced was complex but straightforward. For 6 years, I had been feeding the FBI information about Hartman Defense Systems and their illegal activities. In exchange, any family members who worked with Hartman would be considered protected assets, shielded from prosecution, as long as they remained innocent of knowledge about the crimes being investigated. Marcus Law Firm handled all of Hartman's legal contracts, regulatory filings, and congressional testimony. What my son didn't know was that his biggest client was under federal investigation for money laundering, bribery, and selling military secrets to foreign governments. Marcus had been unwittingly processing paperwork for treasonous activities, while I fed information to federal investigators to build their case. Bill, the evidence file is substantial, Patricia continued. Wire transfers through Marcus escrow accounts. Congressional testimony he helped prepare that contained classified information. Contract negotiations he facilitated between Hartman and foreign shell companies. If he's not protected, any competent prosecutor will argue he had to know what was happening. That's the point, I replied. Charlie needs to understand the consequences of his choices. How long until you can have warrants? Patricia's fingers clicked across her keyboard as she reviewed operational timelines. Search warrants by noon. Asset Charlie will be in federal custody by 2 p.m. for questioning. Media coverage will be immediate once word leaks about the arrests. Perfect. Make sure Charlie understands that his protection was withdrawn at 5:47 a.m. today. No earlier, no later. I want him to know exactly when his safety disappeared. Bill, you realize this could destroy his career permanently? Law license revoked. Disbarment proceedings. Criminal record. Even if charges are eventually dropped, the professional damage will be irreversible. I thought about Marcus standing in his doorway, telling me that his parents were dead and that I had no place in his carefully constructed world. Agent Wells, sometimes people need to discover what protection they've been taking for granted. Understood. But Bill, what's the extraction plan? How do we restore protection if Asset Charlie demonstrates appropriate contrition? This was the crucial question. I wasn't trying to destroy my son permanently. Just teach him a lesson about the cost of severing family bonds. 24-hour timeline. If Charlie makes contact and demonstrates understanding of his situation, protection can be restored. The investigation continues, but he becomes a cooperating witness instead of a target. And if he doesn't make contact, I paused, considering possibilities I hoped would never materialize. Then, he faces the consequences of his choices, like any other criminal defendant. Patricia Wells had seen enough family tragedies during our intelligence careers to understand the weight of what I was authorizing. Bill, I've known you for 30 years. You're one of the most dedicated fathers I've ever met. Are you absolutely certain this is the right approach? My son told me last night that I'm dead to him. Today he gets to find out what that actually means. Authorization confirmed. Operation begins at noon. Asset Charlie will have 24 hours to re-establish contact before permanent classification as hostile target. I hung up the phone and turned off the power, knowing Marcus would be trying to reach me desperately within hours. The breakfast I attempted to eat tasted like cardboard, but I forced myself to maintain normal routines while my son's world prepared to collapse. By afternoon, Marcus would be sitting in a federal interrogation room, staring at evidence of crimes he never realized he was facilitating. learning that the father he rejected was the only thing standing between him and 20 years in federal prison. Sometimes love requires letting people experience the full consequences of their decisions, even when it breaks your heart to watch. By 10:15 a.m., federal agents were swarming the offices of Blackstone, Meyer, and Associates like locusts descending on a harvest. I learned about the raids through news alerts on my laptop, watching aerial footage of black SUVs surrounding the Manhattan building I secretly owned. Marcus found himself in Conference Room B of the FBI's Manhattan field office by noon, staring across a metal table at Agent Patricia Wells and Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Chen. The interrogation room was deliberately sterile. White walls, fluorescent lighting, and a recording device that captured every word for potential use in federal court. Mr. Blackstone, Agent W. Els began, consulting a thick file folder. You've been handling legal affairs for Hartman Defense Systems for approximately 4 years. Marcus nodded cautiously, his expensive suit wrinkled from being handcuffed and transported from his office. Hartman is one of our largest clients. All work was performed according to standard legal protocols and Bar Association guidelines. Were you aware that Hartman Defense has been selling classified military technology to Chinese shell companies? The color drained from Marcus' face. That's impossible. I reviewed every contract personally. All transactions were with approved domestic manufacturers and NATO allies. Attorney Chen slid photographs across the table, shipping manifests, bank statements, and surveillance images of Colonel Hartman meeting with known foreign intelligence operatives. These documents show systematic technology transfers over 3 years. Your firm processed the legal paperwork for every single transaction. Marcus studied the evidence with growing horror. Contract numbers he recognized, shipping addresses he had approved, financial transfers he had facilitated through client escrow accounts. His legal work had provided the framework for treasonous activities he never suspected. I had no knowledge of any illegal activities, Marcus insisted. Every document I prepared was based on information provided by the client. If Hartman was lying about the nature of these transactions, that's not how federal conspiracy laws work. Agent Wells interrupted. Willful blindness isn't a defense. Any reasonable attorney processing contracts of this magnitude would have asked questions about unusual shipping destinations and payment methods. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Marcus' signature appeared on dozens of documents that facilitated the illegal transfer of military secrets. His law firm's escrow accounts had been used to launder millions in payments from foreign governments. Congressional testimony he had helped prepare contained classified information that was later sold to hostile nations. Your only hope is full cooperation, Chen continued. Someone has been protecting you from prosecution despite mountains of evidence, but that protection was withdrawn this morning at 5:47 a.m. Marcus jerked upright in his chair. What do you mean, protection? Who was protecting me? Agent Wells consulted another file, this one marked with security classifications Marcus couldn't read. For 6 years, federal investigators have been receiving detailed intelligence about Hartman Defense's illegal activities. This information allowed us to build our case while ensuring that certain individuals remained classified as protected assets rather than criminal targets. I don't understand. Who was providing this intelligence? Wells slid a classified file across the table. Service record and commendations for Colonel William Thompson, United States Army Intelligence. Combat photographs showed a younger version of Marcus' father in military dress uniform, standing beside generals and politicians Marcus recognized from news coverage. William Thompson, formerly Colonel Thompson, served 20 years in military intelligence before transitioning to civilian consulting work. His construction business was deep cover for ongoing operations with defense contractors and government agencies. Marcus stared at photographs of his father receiving the Silver Star for heroic actions in Afghanistan, the Purple Heart for wounds sustained in Iraq, and commendation letters praising his invaluable service to national security and selfless dedication to protecting American interests. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered. "My father is a construction worker from Albany. He never served in the military. He barely finished high school. Colonel Thompson has been our primary source of intelligence on Hartman Defense for 6 years." Agent Wells continued. "Every piece of evidence in this investigation came from information he provided. He also used his influence to ensure you remained classified as a protected asset, innocent of knowledge about criminal activities. The most shocking revelation came when Chen opened a second file folder containing financial records that traced back to Marcus' entire career. Your father has been the anonymous investor behind your law firm's expansion, your client relationships, even your mortgage approval. The building where you work is owned by Apex Holdings, a company controlled by William Thompson." Marcus' hands trembled as he processed this information. His perfect life, his prestigious career, his social connections, his financial security, everything had been built on foundations provided by the father he rejected and humiliated. "Where is my father now?" Marcus asked desperately. "I need to speak with him immediately. Colonel Thompson withdrew protection at 5:47 this morning and has been unreachable since then. You have approximately 14 hours remaining before this investigation proceeds without considering your protected status." Agent Wells leaned forward with professional sympathy. "Mr. Blackstone, you're facing 20 years in federal prison for conspiracy, money laundering, and facilitating the transfer of classified technology to foreign governments. Your father was the only thing standing between you and these charges." Marcus tried calling his father's number repeatedly, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. The apartment complex management confirmed that William Thompson was not accepting visitors or messages. The construction company office was closed for the day. "What do I need to do?" Marcus asked, his voice breaking with desperation. "That's between you and your father," Agent Wells replied. "We're not family counselors. We're federal investigators building a case against traitors who sold American military secrets to hostile foreign governments. Unless protection is restored in the next 14 hours, you become our primary target." As afternoon turned to evening, Marcus sat in his lawyer's office, staring at evidence of his father's true identity. Military commendations lined the walls of what Marcus had assumed was a simple construction worker's modest life. Congressional testimony praised William Thompson's intelligence work. Defense Department contracts showed consulting fees that dwarfed anything Marcus earned at his prestigious law firm. His father wasn't a blue-collar embarrassment. He was a decorated war hero whose humble lifestyle camouflaged a distinguished career in service to his country. And Marcus had rejected him, humiliated him, and pretended he was dead. At exactly 4 p.m., after 12 hours of desperate attempts to reach his father, Marcus heard his phone ring. The caller ID showed the number he had been dialing obsessively since noon. His hands shook as he answered. "Dad." His voice cracked like a teenager's. "Dad, please, I need to talk to you. I've been trying to reach you all day." "I know," came the calm response. William's voice carried none of the hurt or anger Marcus expected. "I've been watching the news coverage. Federal raids tend to make headlines when they involve prestigious law firms." Marcus was crying openly now, standing in his lawyer's office while tears streamed down his face. "Dad, I had no idea who you really were. The FBI showed me your service record, your decorations, everything you've done for this country. And I was ashamed of you. God help me, I was ashamed of my own father." "I know," William repeated gently. "That's why this lesson was necessary." "Lesson?" Marcus struggled to understand. "Dad, they're talking about 20 years in prison. Money laundering, conspiracy, treason. My career is over. My life is destroyed. Son, sit down and listen carefully." William's voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to command. "The federal investigation is real. Hartman Defense has been selling military secrets to foreign governments, and you've been unknowingly processing the legal paperwork. but my protection was never actually withdrawn. Marcus felt the world shift beneath his feet. What do you mean? I called Agent Wells to authorize a demonstration, not a prosecution. You needed to understand what happens when you burn bridges with people who love you. For 12 hours, you've experienced what your life would be like without your father's protection and support. The relief was so overwhelming that Marcus collapsed into a chair, his legs unable to support him, so the charges will be dropped. The investigation continues, but you'll be reclassified as a cooperating witness rather than a target. Your law license remains intact. Your career survives. But son, everything you've built was constructed on foundations I provided through 6 years of secret support. William explained the full scope of his involvement. The building ownership, the client referrals, the financial backing, the federal protection. Marcus listened in growing amazement as his father revealed the sophisticated network of connections and resources he had deployed to ensure his son's success. "Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus asked. "Why let me believe I earned everything through my own talent?" "Because you did earn it," William replied firmly. "I opened doors, but you walked through them. I created opportunities, but you seized them. Your legal skills, your work ethic, your intelligence are genuine. I just made sure talent had the chance to flourish." At 6:30 p.m., Marcus drove his BMW through the familiar streets of Albany for the first time in 8 months. His father's apartment building looked different now that he understood it was home to a decorated war hero, rather than an embarrassing blue-collar relative. William answered the door wearing a simple polo shirt and khaki pants. But Marcus now saw the military bearing in his posture, the alert intelligence in his eyes, the quiet confidence of someone who had faced life and death situations and emerged victorious. "Come in, son." The apartment was modest but comfortable, filled with details Marcus had never noticed during previous visits. Military commendations hung on the walls between family photographs. A sophisticated computer setup occupied one corner, obviously used for more than casual internet browsing. Bookshelves contained technical manuals, intelligence analysis texts, and strategic planning guides alongside popular novels and woodworking magazines. "Dad, I owe you the biggest apology of my life." Marcus sat heavily on the familiar couch where he had watched countless football games during college breaks. "I was so desperate to fit in with Courtney's family and the law firm partners that I convinced myself you were holding me back. I was ashamed of our background, ashamed of where I came from." William settled into his recliner, the same one where he had helped Marcus with homework decades earlier. "What specifically were you ashamed of?" "Everything," Marcus admitted painfully. "Your work clothes, your truck, your apartment, your accent. I wanted people to see me as sophisticated, educated, worthy of respect in elite circles. I thought having a construction worker father would make me seem less impressive. And now..." Marcus looked around the apartment with new eyes, seeing evidence of a distinguished career in service to his country. "Now I realize I'm the son of a war hero who sacrificed everything for my success. You could have lived anywhere, done anything with your skills and connections. Instead, you chose to stay close to me, to support my dreams even when I rejected everything about our family." William reached for the manila envelope that had started this entire ordeal. "These are transfer papers that would make you the legal owner of all my investments and properties. $2 million in assets, all legitimately yours. I came to your house last night to give you complete financial independence." "I don't want your money, Dad. I want my father back." The conversation continued deep into the evening. Marcus called Courtney to explain he wouldn't be home, that he was having dinner with his father for the first time in 8 months. Her response was predictably cold, but Marcus no longer cared about her approval or her family's social expectations. "There's something else you need to understand," William said as they shared pizza from Marcus' childhood favorite restaurant. "Your association with powerful but corrupt people nearly destroyed your career today. Hartman will be indicted within weeks. Senator Wellington is under investigation for campaign finance violations. The charity connections you're so proud of involve tax evasion and money laundering. Marcus felt sick as he realized how close he had come to genuine criminal liability. How do I extract myself from these relationships without destroying my career completely? Carefully and gradually, William advised. You cooperate fully with federal investigators. You distance yourself from questionable clients. You rebuild your practice based on legitimate legal work rather than political connections. And, Courtney, William's expression grew serious. Son, that's your decision to make. But consider whether your marriage is based on love or social advancement. Consider whether your wife would have supported you during today's crisis or abandoned you to protect her family's reputation. The answer to that question was painfully obvious. Courtney had been unreachable all day, her phone going directly to voicemail. Text messages went unread. Her silence spoke louder than any words about her priorities when his career faced genuine threats. Over the following weeks, Marcus began rebuilding his relationship with his father on foundations of honesty and mutual respect. He visited Albany every weekend, learning about William's military service and intelligence career. They worked together in William's garage workshop, where Marcus rediscovered the satisfaction of building things with his hands. Marcus also began the delicate process of extricating himself from the legal and social connections that had defined his adult life. He cooperated fully with federal investigators, providing detailed testimony about his unwitting role in Hartman's criminal activities. He resigned from charitable organizations that were under investigation for financial irregularities. He declined social invitations that were based on connections to people facing federal charges. Most significantly, Marcus had an honest conversation with Courtney about their marriage and their future. When he explained that he would no longer prioritize social advancement over family relationships, when he insisted on acknowledging his father publicly and proudly, Courtney made her choice clear. She filed for divorce within 2 weeks, citing irreconcilable differences but privately complaining to her friends about Marcus' sudden obsession with his embarrassing relatives. The divorce was painful but liberating. Marcus kept the apartment in Manhattan but sold the Westchester mansion, using the proceeds to pay back his father's investments and establish his independence on legitimate foundations. 6 months later, Marcus stood in William's backyard in Albany, teaching his 4-year-old son Billy how to throw a baseball. The marriage to Courtney had produced one precious gift: a grandson who would grow up understanding the value of family loyalty and honest work. Billy's small hands gripped the worn leather baseball that had once belonged to Marcus, the same ball William had used to teach his son decades earlier. 3 generations connected by shared experiences and mutual love. "Grandpa, tell me again about your medals," Billy said, settling into William's lap after baseball practice. "Those medals represent service to our country," William explained patiently. "But the most important thing I ever did was raise your daddy to be a good man." Marcus watched this interaction with deep gratitude and hard-won wisdom. His father's quiet strength had always been there, disguised as humble blue-collar work, but rooted in genuine heroism and selfless love. The most dangerous mistake Marcus ever made was confusing appearances with reality, social status with true worth. The life lesson was profound and lasting. Authentic success comes from honoring the people who sacrifice to give you opportunities, not from denying your origins to impress strangers. A father's love endures even the cruelest betrayals, but respect must be earned through character, integrity, and loyalty to the values that matter most. Marcus' new law practice focused on helping veterans navigate disability claims and family legal issues. The work paid less than corporate defense contracts, but it connected him to his father's world of service and sacrifice. His clients respected him not for his social connections or elite education, but for his genuine commitment to fighting for people who had given everything for their country. The final scene of this story found 3 generations working together in William's garage on a Saturday afternoon. Billy handed tools to his father and grandfather as they repaired a neighbor's broken fence. Honest work, honest conversation, and honest love filled the space where secrets and shame had once created barriers between father and son. Marcus looked at his father with deep respect and gratitude, finally understanding that the most impressive thing about William Thompson wasn't his military decorations or intelligence connections. It was his willingness to sacrifice everything, including his own recognition and credit, to ensure his son had every possible opportunity to succeed. True strength lies not in denying your roots, but in honoring the soil that helped you grow. Have you ever had to choose between fitting in with a social group and staying loyal to your family? How did you handle the pressure to change who you are in order to impress others? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video if William's story reminded you of the importance of honoring the people who sacrificed for your success. Subscribe for more stories about family, redemption, and the courage it takes to do what's right, even when it costs you everything. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that authentic success comes from character, not connections. Thank you for listening, and remember that the people who love you most deserve your loyalty, especially when the world tempts you to forget where you came from.